Hi, this is again Dan, and today I'm playing Act 1 of my campaign as Swedes? Something like that. So this is going to be a start with Prussia again, but I'm going to pretend that it's actually Sweden. Just doing their thing like they did under the 7-Year War. I have already created the uniforms for it, but you know, these are not authentic uniforms. It's not even authentic unit names. I didn't really get that deep into it. And yes, if you hear some whining, that is my daughter's dog that has some separation anxiety. I have been scratching his head everything this entire time they're gone, but he likes to whine. That's just the way it is. Charlie, my dog, he is not like that at all. Yeah, he likes to lay around my feet, but he doesn't whine a lot, to be honest. But here we are with the two different units. So the names are real, but not necessarily from the right century. They some of them will be from the 30-Year War, 1600 something. Some of them might be the 1700s. It's names, but they are real marshals for the Swedish army in some capacity. I didn't read up on them. As far as the flags, I didn't read up on them. So I don't want to disappoint, but this is just the assumption of something looking Swedish. I didn't feel like really get invested and deep into it. But I know that they did serve or did fight in the 7-Year War. And yeah. So we are going to start our first battle. And then I'm just going to showcase the battles after that. So this is the first one, the Battle of Olsen. And then the rest is just going to be the battle as I go through Act 1. I don't want to bore you with scrounging the entire map, go into every single little city, and then getting stuff. None of that is really interesting. My setup for any battle, and that's truly whether they are large or small, is to find a spot that has some defense abilities so I can get as much cover as possible. These units are really not that strong, so I thought, well, let's go down to the actual small city or village or whatever that might be, and then just set it up there. That way I can get the most out of protection and then simply move my cavalry unit around to flank attack while they're pinned down trying to, attack my poor troops here. It is true that they're kind of on the wimpy side depending on what you play. There are some units that are not really that good. I started playing Russians, and wow, that was interesting. Apparently France is not that good either, but I don't know. I didn't really care so much for the Habsburg. Not that Habsburg were necessarily bad, but they had a lot of unit mix that wasn't all that good quality. So even as a full army, I tended to have a lot of units that broke. I don't know if it was size or lack of morale or whatever is the case, because each unit has its own morale, training, things like that. So, yeah. Not necessarily what you want to deal with. Some of those fine adjustments is just to find a maximum amount of cover, to be honest. In the end, when you have a really large army, I'm not so hung up about getting maximum cover necessarily. You know roughly what provides you with the best amount of cover especially if there's any fencing, any hedges, or something like a small community, some couple of houses. You'll stretch it out there, you will get the most cover out of it. And it's here in the beginning when you don't want to take an excessive amount of casualties, especially when you don't really have that much resources. Yeah, I will try to maximize cover as much as possible. And then later on, it's just going to be basic places because most of the damage is going to be dealt by something like a cavalry unit charging you in flank or in the back, or even something like a good artillery unit doing grape shots, which you will see a lot throughout this series of 3 videos where grape shot kind of do its thing. Looks like he's getting really aggressive with his cavalry here. This is a good cavalry unit though, so in general you will do okay unless you're really, really stupid. And yeah, I wasn't gonna waste my cavalry here. Later on, unfortunately, gonna see some very close ones where my Cossacks, which is considered a light cavalry, will charge ahead because they have such stamina and speed that sometimes they put you in trouble. Yeah, and they break. Really, it's about cracking morale, honestly. That's where you win most of the battles. It isn't necessarily about completely destroying all units, to be honest. And that was victory at Olsen. Battle of Hildesheim. I now have a few more units after scrounging around. It's not a large army. I'm still down to 1 cavalry unit, which of course always matters if you use it correctly. But I now have 4 infantry units. 1 is a Cossack though, and it generally starts as like an infantry unit, and then you can always make it I think it's something like a skirmisher, or you can make it something like one of several different cavalry units. And I generally do cavalry as soon as possible in order to get that because it's such an awesome infantry. It's not bad, but it's certainly not as good as some of the major Prussian infantry units, especially something like the Royal Guard that you can have much later on. So yeah, this is something that you definitely want to safeguard as much as possible because they're going to make a heck of a cavalry unit later on. Strategy is really simple. You want to position yourself with as much cover as possible. Of course, the guy have a artillery unit, so what I'm probably looking to do here is tie them up as much as possible. They have a similar amount of infantry units, and as soon as there's a gap between his infantry and the artillery unit, I'm gonna go for it. It's dead simple. Just want to make sure that you're moving forward as much as possible to engage. And once he is stuck trying to smack you, then you can always move a lot faster than he can. Only problem is most rifles are not going to be as good as the later excellent rifles with the same range. And same is true with your artillery, so yeah. As you can see, I'm moving around my cavalry on the flank. It looks like he noticed that, or the AI noticed that, but you know, he's gonna move now across all the units and then get hit. So he's really goof maneuvering here, in my opinion. But then again, it's a computer. It's not ever going to be as smart as a human being. That's just it. And I'm using my skirmishing units that, for some reason, I kept through all 3 campaigns. Just OG guy. And I'm just going to flank with him. Did pretty good, too. Not a bad unit at all. And yeah. His artillery is gone. And I'm just baiting away that infantry unit, so I can get as much as possible out of the units that I have. And what's important is when you start seeing your morale go down, especially as they take damage, just make sure that you move up your leader as much as possible to get that morale back. And he's wavering. Let's go ahead and quickly wipe that artillery unit out. And then bolt, because I'm probably going to have to take... Yeah, see. I did get myself a face full of musket shots, but, you know. That's what speed is for. So broke that unit. Now it's just a matter of doing the same. Enemy units and your own units are not truly gone until they're shattered. You can certainly break them enough so they don't really regain their morale, but they can bounce back at any time. So it's important that you follow up, especially the cavalry units. Those are always good to sweep around and completely break them. Because once a unit is shattered or broken completely, then they're gone. You don't have to continue killing them. Of course, I'm assuming that adds a little bit of experience when you do, but, you know, you're also making your troops extremely tired. Especially the cavalry units, so you don't want to have them run around too much, because trying to charge with a really tired cavalry unit is not fun. You might have to take a couple of face full of musket shots. An idea here is just to make sure that I break that unit too before he can get back. That way I don't have to fight anything that's relatively fresh. And I keep on using my infantry units for what it is. And it's just flank, break, and then my cavalry unit can go in for the kill and make sure that they lose morale quicker. And they're shattered and destroyed. And we're broke another one. So now it's just a matter of getting that other unit up there in the corner. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's trying to hide there. Just like hiding in a bush. Looking at the opposite way. Silly bugger. Yeah, you can hear this. You can hear that how happy my cavalry unit are. And I really did pretty good with them too. I never wasted that one unit in particular by charging into an almost completely fresh unit with good morale, because that's really the worst. Honestly, should have just switched the target here a long time ago, but they seem to have just tried to maul that one. And here we go. 4 infantry units beating them up, and that battle is over. Victor at Hildesheim. Now, sometimes we'll do battles with all these random patrols just to get their stuff and also to either ransom them, get provisions, experience, etc. This is one of those battles. And I have a few more units this time. I have a full infantry brigade. And I finally have 2 cavalry units. So that's going to be a little bit better as far as with the oomph. I don't have to necessarily be super worried about charging anything that might have slightly better morale, as long as you do it in the flank or in the back. You can do pretty well when it comes to full charges with 2 large cavalry units. 4 is, of course, even better, but in this case, I figured I could get a little bit... I don't know. I didn't have to necessarily worry about getting one broken. But unfortunately, that can still happen. I'm just doing the same strategy. Find myself somewhere where you have decent enough cover. And you want to fine-tune it a little bit so you take massive advantage of the type of terrain that you can use. What's also important is to think about maybe keeping something in reserve, just in case you get flank attacked or anything like that. I generally want to keep my officer a little bit away from the main combat as a backup, but also as moral support. And you can put it a little bit to outside on behind, and it will actually be able to fire, but you won't necessarily lose your officer over it. Probably not entirely historic. There are some leaders that like to be right up there in a face of danger and do their heroic thing. So, but I honestly prefer for it to survive. Still no artillery unit. I like myself some artillery. And they too have 2 cavalry units. So this can be pretty annoying. Yeah. One tactic that I like is to, as long as they have rifles, do something like a charge and shoot, or shoot and scoot, if you so want. There we go. Both of them broken. It works better with box shots. Box shot is an excellent way of just doing a massive amount of damage, and then as far as everything else, just charge in and slaughter. So this one was a fairly short battle in my opinion. They had already started getting pretty mauled up by my units that are in cover, and I had almost double attack power on all of them. And then, of course, I won that cavalry charge, and that's all that matters. Victor at Bickeberg. Battle of Verden. And I still haven't any more units. I've been just scrounging around, picking up as much provisions and materials and looting in order to afford either getting more units or getting into encounters where you can get more units. I really hope that they are going to fix the inventory sorting issue. Right now, there is none. It's kind of a bummer. what I would prefer is that you could sort it by category, so it makes it easier for you as you switch out items to locate the ones that are better. So 2 types of sorting. Let's say you have sorting by item category, for example, rifles, right? And then you can sort it from best towards stat. So 2 types within the same kind of sorting mechanism. Or maybe even by tabs. So it just seems to be very annoying right now. There are times when you have all these items spread out in the inventory, and then you think you found the best rifle, but then later on you find something so much further down because you have all these gaps in your inventory, and you have no way of just consolidating the item and sort it together. So I did notice on the roadmap that was one of the items they're going to work on getting. Possibly even in November, so we'll see. I hope so. It's just an annoying feature. I am surprised that the game didn't come with a sorting feature. Super surprised. Not that it's in bad shape. They have done some adjustments, but it's not really in bad shape as far as I haven't seen any major crashes or anything like that. But generally, that's just my humble opinion. Generally, you see something like that in any game, especially when you have so many items. And of course, they have artillery. So I'm just trying to do that thing that I always do. In this case, I'm adding a reserve unit, and that is my officer, and then I'm trying to just keep him from, getting completely routed and killed. Man, they were really spreading out their infantry units. And I'm going right away for the roundabout. I figured even if they have a cavalry unit, they're not going to really be able to do much about it. What I am worried more is to be face planted by, as you can see, they are now moving 3 infantry units in. So I figured I was just going to go for, let's get rid of that. Let's knock out the cavalry and then just bolt. That was it. And then what you can do is just you move towards the flanks, and if they're still stuck with you, the infantry units, they would just move around and out while you can then maneuver out of the way and just have them, I mean, what could you call it? Taking their aggro? Yeah, something like that. And now, since I have knocked out a couple of units that are running away, I'm also adding some flank fire as much as possible before they get into close up and start smacking my skirmisher around. The real nice thing with skirmisher, as long as they don't get charged, they're pretty resilient. Hard to hit. They seem to have some benefit of the kind of dispersed setup. They're not as many, of course, as a large infantry unit, so there's always this risk that you will get completely pummeled. But yeah. And as you can see, I managed to break 4 infantry units just by taking them offline, so to speak, by going around destroying their cavalry and artillery. And then now I only have a relatively fresh unit I have to worry about. And in this case, I figured just, either charge it, go behind the back. It depends on the morale. Sometimes it's just fun to sit in their back and just shoot them with buckshots. That works. But the victory at Verden. Next battle for Schneverdingen. Oh, gotta be good. Gotta be good. Still no other new units. And I'm just going after patrol units to, you know, grind for items, provisions, experience, all the good stuff. Yeah, that's a little bit offset. There's a couple of areas you could go to. I figure if you have an open area that you fight them in, meaning they are forced to be in the open, while I can be behind a relatively good protection, then that would be a little bit more of an advantage for me. Again, I don't really like to take a truck ton of damage. It sets your back, especially if you play very aggressively early on. You can get a couple of units mauled, and then you're looking at losing veterancy status or experience, and of course, tons of losses. So all you do is just eat up your resources. It's always better to be smarter, at least in the beginning. When you start having enough resources and you have to manage up to 5 brigades, then yeah, being completely super anal about all that stuff, that can be, you know, just time consuming, to be honest. Although I still don't necessarily want to have really well experienced unit to be destroyed. Obviously not. But, you know, it's just one of those things. There is supposedly an advantage by having them on a hill. Supposedly. And I do believe there are some skills and possibly perks that can allow you to get a benefit from that. Yeah, I moved around all the way around. I'm just trying to entice that cavalry unit to go after me. And unfortunately, I also got a infantry unit going after me, so that wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to do. So that's why I'm just pulling back as much as possible. It's being very, I don't know, drunk. It's like he wants to try to flank around me, but then when I get too close with my cavalry unit, he breaks commitments. Let's give him a little shot in the face first. I know. Sorry about the annoying clicking constantly. But I just want to be able to have both of my units fire before I waste time going into charge range and possibly get slapped. Looks unfortunately like I lost one of my cavalry units. He got so mauled that he decided to skip town. But I chased after him. You're gonna have to do that. That way I managed to get him back. And that's why it's also good to have your general, your main leader, close to units that are kind of sensitive or that you don't necessarily want to lose real quick. That way you can at least keep them in a fight a little bit longer, particularly when it comes to... Oh, he broke before I even got close. Yes, hundreds of cavalry unit coming charging, and he decided, like, that's it. I'm not gonna even And that is a relatively full infantry unit. I haven't really taken any damage, so I don't want to charge into that, especially with a half-broken unit that's seen its best days. So time to just get in and start pummeling. Face to face. You know? Good old infantry tactics, ranks firing. And then just sneakily, or not so sneakily, move my cavalry around. Flanking is also good. Always better to flank. Not just because they can't shoot you in the face, but they take more morale damage that way. Ah, he broke before I could even charge him. Victory! Look how happy they are. Like, way, we won, we won, we won. Battle for Sneverdingen. Battle of Olsen. I now have 3 brigades. I decided to go in town, get some units, clear out some places, including a fortress. So that's nice. They gave me a perk. And now it's a matter of taking on... I don't think this is going to be necessarily a very large formation. But having at least 3 brigades feels good. These are going to be 2 infantry brigades in the setup I normally like, which is not 3 infantry brigades, 2 infantry brigades. The setup is 3 infantry units, 1 artillery unit for each, and then a full cavalry unit of just slaughter. I did also get my Cossack upgraded to, in this case, a cavalry. Cavalry. So that's going to be a fast, light unit. A little bit too fast, because the rest of them are in all degrees of slow. They hit a little bit harder, but they are slower. I also found myself another Cossack, I believe. And that's going to be like a infantry unit Cossack. So once that has been upgraded to a cavalry unit, I'm probably just going to put one of those in reserves. And have 2 Cossack cavalry units. Because I like speed. Red goes faster. Especially if you're in the Warhammer universe. I like the fact that I have artillery. It always feels nice when you can do that. I'm gonna do my regular thing, and it looks like he managed to get an artillery unit to fire at me. Not cool. Not cool. And what I'm doing here is just stretching out 2 of my infantry brigades in order to be just pretty much soaking up all their infantry. And then I'm probably just going to start baiting them with the artillery to fire round shot when they get close, nail them in the face with grape shot. Although, to be honest, grape shot on these early cannons are not that efficient. Very short range. And of course, you're talking about mostly 3-pounders. You're not going to see a lot of 6-pounders and 12-pounders early on, but, you know, maybe you get lucky. Of course, if you pay more and you happen to have a unit like that in a barrack, then, yeah, that can happen. And sometimes you're going to have to adjust according to how the enemy maneuvers. They like to do a lot of straight lines to begin with, and then flank in a certain way with the cavalry. I, on the other hand, like to just get as much cover as possible. So nice to hear the roar of the cannons. Of course, I'm not entirely sure if I have any grape shot on this, to be honest. Well, if they're going to allow me to flank them, then I certainly will flank them. I have no problem with that at all. Yeah, nice little flank. Of course, he's moving his cavalry around, so I don't know where it's going to go with that. Oh man, he broke right away. Awesome. He just took a couple of facefuls, some musket balls, and said, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, looks like his artillery is a little bit worried about my my cavalry units here. A little bit preoccupied attacking those. I don't know what he's doing with his. Oh, now his cavalry unit was like, oh shit, cavalry. Dang. Yeah, see how fast the Cossack is, but it also gets them in trouble. They are light, so they might not take a lot of damage. And now I'm just trying to get in so I can actually first fire a couple of shots at him. And then get rid of him. Let's see here. Oh, that's a lot of wavering units. And I pretty much have a whole brigade ready to flank with. That's pretty sweet. That's always a good feeling. Don't start fighting, guys. Both wants attention. Yeah. And that was a simple victory. I really didn't have much of a chance there. Victory at Olsen. The infamous battle at Olsen. Now, there are these large armies that you can find across the map. So these are not a headquarter army, but it's an army that's encamped. And if you defeat the army like that, you get a campaign perk. So there is an incentive to do it. Just keep in mind they're fairly large, probably about 3 to 5 brigades, depending on which act you're in. So it's not necessarily something you want to run into right away. Now, fortress are a little bit different. You never really fight the fortresses. Now, there's a likelihood that you will manage to take over a fortress. So that's one thing. But when it comes to larger battles like these, you definitely want to have a bunch of units. And in this case, I am prepped with my 4 brigades here. There's going to be 3 infantry brigades. We have a artillery unit in each infantry brigade, and then of course a fully built out cavalry unit. So all good. And it's just a matter of finding. I have a fair idea what to do in most of the maps. So I played them enough now to get an idea what I like to do and what works. So that's what I'm going for here. Nice thing with the Prussians is that they have their horse artillery. I'm not sure if any other units have quite that type of horse artillery. It's of course the highest ranked ones, but they're fast because of how many horses they have pulling the artillery with. So you can get into like position real quick, especially if you have a separate artillery regiment. This is not it. This is just a mix of low-grade artillery units and backing up my infantry unit. So it's going to be mostly, if I can, use grape. For some reason, you can't use grape on hills. I don't know why that is. You can only use ball rounds. It's just what it is. So if you ever want to fire grape shot from a cannon, just don't put it on a slope or a hill. It's always fun when you start with an artillery duel. Most of the time, I will win, and pretty much just because I generally use as much artillery as possible. The difficulty you will have, of course, yeah, see, grape shot is not that, especially when you have like 3 and 6 pounders. It's a little bit different when you start getting the 12 pounders. And those really huge canister of grape shots, those are awesome. The length on those, you can probably nail artillery at that range. I always take advantage of the city. Now originally I wanted to take that hill and kind of have like a flank setup. But right now it looks like he moved up his units there pretty quick, so I don't want to do it. I'm just doing a straight line, setting up my artillery, and then as soon as it gets close enough, I'm going to use grape shots because it's just more efficient at demoralize them as quickly as possible. I wonder if there's not some issue with the grape shot though, because they're not really that efficient. If you have played Total War Empire, and again, I don't know. I'm not an artillery expert, but once you can start hitting them with grape shot, it's really, really damaging. You can nail out the whole rank of units. Here, not so much. They seem to be able to take damage pretty well. I mean, eventually it will hurt, and eventually it would demoralize, but yeah, it seems like it'd take a lot of pain. Yeah, I wonder how long I'm gonna duel with that cannon. It'll be a little bit easier when you start having the artillery regiments. When you have 4 units of artillery that focus fire on something like an enemy artillery unit, they melt. Especially if you can hit them with grape shot. Like towards the end. Ugh. God, you can shatter them in one hit. We're doing it. We're definitely getting into... Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, I think it's following me around. Or maybe it's trying to sneak in some kind of attack here. Nah, he's definitely following me around. I don't switch over to individual single fire very often. It's just a little bit too much micromanagement. Also, if you tell them to go in like line formation, which is where they load the fastest, it doesn't seem to work that well. I'm not sure if it's sticking at all. I hope they can fix that and adjust that so you don't keep changing formation anytime you move a unit, but rather that it stays as a line formation to maximize firepower. But I mean, it's a minor thing, but when you start moving around 5 brigades, you don't want to have to go into individual units to do formation changes to maximize the benefit from it. Yeah, I think they decided to turn around and try to nail me with artillery here. Well, trying to. I think they're succeeding, but there we go. And I definitely want to get out of there. That was an infantry unit about to do the whole face fire, musket fire. And I am just cleaning. I am just cleaning. Oh. Yeah, I lost a unit. Actually, I lost 2 units. He rolled up an entire flank. Nice. That chucks. But I'm paying them back over there. I use my cavalry the right place. Yeah, he really rolled up my shit. And I didn't want him to charge into my artillery either. Artillery is really expensive to lose. Some of the cheapest unit you can buy is infantry. You get them as a green recruit and then just level them up. All good. But in artillery units, expensive artillery cannons, expensive equipment, and of course it takes forever for you to get the really good artillery out of it. So not something you want to lose. Yeah, it's always good to switch over to ball again once they start getting out of your range. Yes, you can punish them for as long as possible. Yeah, so one rallied back and one unit decided to bolt off the map. Hopefully, I don't think I lost a unit there. And of course, I got one of my cavalry unit pretty mauled too. But sometimes that's just the case. If you are unfortunate enough to be too quick to get in, yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, they're all bad. There's just like one unit left. Yeah, I don't want a frontal charge, something like that, so. And I probably shouldn't have moved up my really beat up unit. That just means it's gonna break easier and not be able to take as much pain. So, probably not the smartest thing you can do, to be honest. And you definitely shouldn't go face first with cavalry that aren't that beat up. But flanking fire is good. Impatience is probably the dumbest thing that you can have in cases like this. Yeah. Like going in with that unit that is so beat up. But he got a shot away first, and that did it. It was just not the smartest plan. I will tell you that. I am curious as to what perk I picked from this guy. Oh yeah, frontline focus. Now this really is the first. I don't think I have ever been in Act 1 where it ended up being winter conditions. So I was really dragging my ass. I was just picking up any camp, any slum. I was just doing all of them in order to have the best start possible. And it turned into winter, which means you have higher attrition rate, things cost more, you're slower to move, and as you can see, pretty bare bones. That means probably less of a cover. And yeah. Not the smartest thing, for sure. Yeah, that's not much to hide behind here. Definitely not much to hide behind. In cases like these, you kind of have to do what you can with the environment. Although, I'm not really worried. We're not talking about a lot of units. This is a very small army in comparison. Doesn't mean that I want to just charge ahead and get half my units all screwed up, especially when the final battle is brewing here. So, being less than stupid is probably a good idea. Probably should have boxed them in a little bit better. In this battle, I could have moved up towards the fencing area. But, you know, I took my sweet old time. That wasn't a problem. All that sweet fireworks. Yeah, unfortunately I'm going to have to take a couple of face full of musket balls because I hadn't moved up. It's also one of those problems when you get too lazy to position your units beforehand. And, yeah. 2 cavalry units. Yeah, I'm going all the way around. Already broken. And he got instantly trashed. Absolutely crushed. Oh yeah. It's always nice when you can just get them done before they have a chance to do any damage. Victory at Elper. So I ran out of time, and of course the headquarter comes chasing you. And that's exactly what happened here. Luckily enough, I had managed to put together enough brigades to match theirs. That's not going to be true as far as Act 2 and 3. I can tell you that. Those armies are huge. That's a standard setup. And I'm just looking for ways of making sure that you can get the most out of the actual cover that you find. It's a little bit harder in this one because you have a hill which can be useful, especially if you put some units behind it. But in this case, I was just looking at maybe making a straight line just beyond that one hill and get a little bit of that tree line and everything else set up for me. So two consecutive battles at Elper. I guess this one is the final battle in Act 1. And as you can see, I started with a scrawny little 2 brigades, 1 cavalry, and 1 infantry. And now I have a total of 4 brigades ready to go. The final one is, of course, going to be the artillery regiment. But I never really had enough money to start founding that. And not to mention, if you try to buy an artillery unit outright, super expensive. Easily close to, if not over, 1,000 gold just for it. And that's a big money sink for sure. I actually moved it over to column in order to get as much speed as possible so I can move up quicker. It just turns out that I don't know what it is. I think it's a waste of time, to be honest. You don't seem to be that much faster. You seem to lose time moving from one formation to another. And for most part, I just go with what they originally set up at. In fact, I barely changed them over to line formation anymore because it just doesn't feel like it's useful or or for that matter, will do a good job. And that's unfortunate considering that formation should matter. But I don't think so. Not the only formation that really matters is the skirmish one when you have the smaller skirmishing or Jagger units. That's very effective. But going from line to whatever you have, freeform, it just doesn't matter. You just want to get as much of your fireworks in place and then just as many units as possible fighting. I have switched over from individual firing from like the whole formation fire, right? I have done so in the past. I don't see much difference when you do, but maybe I haven't really observed it enough. Sometimes, for example, if I go on flank fire, I do that. A formation fire is supposed to also drop your it should be dropping morale a little bit quicker. I just don't know if I really observed any difference there. Yeah, good old artillery. It just doesn't feel as useful. And I don't understand why you have howitzers with no explosive ammo. That's the thing that the howitzer should be doing as far as I understand it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe up to the point where they started using explosive ammo, howitzer we just used to lob in or lob over. I just don't know. Yeah, using skirmishing units, you probably don't want it to be your boss unit. That's something that I should have realized a long time ago. I just didn't do it. But it's probably much better to have a boss unit to be the best type of infantry unit you can have as opposed to a skirmish unit. Because I think the skills it has is more global for all your units, so it's not specific just to that one. Just trying to break their units. Grape shots, very efficient against artillery. Don't know why. Probably because there's a few of the artillery units compared to like a whole formation. Although a whole formation should still lose a lot of units if you fire at them, but you know, you don't have the bouncing effect of the solid shot, but it can take out. You can take out an artillery unit with just one shot. So it's always good when you can. Most of the time you don't really have the range for it, but that's just the way it is. There's one thing that you will see here very shortly, and something unfortunately I completely missed out. No, maybe not in this one. I know that in one battle I unfortunately didn't pay attention to where the cavalry were, so I got a little bit ambushed on that, but it might not be this particular battle. Always keep an eye on the minimap up in the right hand corner. The difference is that the triangle ones, I believe, are the cavalry. The square ones are the infantry units. So keeping track on how they move their cavalry unit can mean the difference between losing a unit or two or not. Of course, you can listen to the sound cue too of the noisy units charging or whatever, but you know, that's not the first thing you pay attention to, especially when you have a sprawling battle like this. It's a little bit hard to be everywhere, or just to be smart, pause it while you're checking around and making sure you're not going to be ambushed. Done a pretty good job on the flanks. Just beat them up, and that's so important that you make sure that they have to stay in the open to fire at you, while you are firing from as good of a cover as possible. You definitely want to maximize that, especially when you have one or two units against you. I understand why the grenade range is not that far. The thing is that most units will stop at like maximum fire range and fire from there. Then here he has absolutely trashed your cavalry unit. And now I'm gonna get a little bit bold and go after that one. But sometimes, again, I just do this whole thing where you stand and fire. And that's because shotgun fire at this kind of range, yeah, pretty delicious. It's so easy to flank fire someone to death that way. And I totally missed the fact that he was charging down, straight down. It looks unfortunately like it broke my my leader, and that's bad. And that's why you should never have your leader as boss over a skirmishing unit, because they can't really withstand a good charge. They're good at holding something off at range, as far as not take so much damage, but as soon as they get determined to charge you, your skirmishing unit is going to lose most of the time. will say I had an upper hand on this particular battle most of the time, considering that he had a couple of fewer units than me. So I used the space as advantageously as possible, and of course having a decent amount of artillery unit always helps. It's a good thing I didn't lose my my officer right there. It's such a dumb move to do that, to have a unit like that. So thought for a campaign again, make sure that you remove all the skirmishing units out of the way and that you avoid using them as bosses. Yeah, that's so effective. Shatter, breaking them so they don't come back. Always a good thing. Yeah, at this point, he is lost. He has one unit that are marching towards me valiantly, where I have almost a full cavalry unit. I only had one unit broken, which was my smallest unit. So yeah. And there we have it. The second battle for Ulper. And the final battle against their main headquarters. Actually turned into winter. That's the first time in Act 1 that I have seen winter happen. But there we are. I now have enough to buy my 4th brigade. There are a couple of units that I received from just going around and taking everything. I don't think I ever took this long to get to the headquarters my last run around. This was just the headquarters started moving and going after me. And I just had to attack. Especially in the winter. Everything cost more. As far as upkeep and whatnot. And the unit I have right now is I basically laid a foundation of all my infantry units. And the cavalry unit. I was fortunate enough to get the Cossack very early. They're so fast. And then I do have another Cossack regiment here, I think. Is it called a Frontier Recruits? I think so. Let's go in and take a look. What are we going to do? Did I do... Yeah, I didn't take that many losses. I actually played it pretty good and safe. So I didn't take too many losses, which is amazing considering, you know, I went into the headquarters. Wow, he broke. But he didn't die. That's the most important. I didn't lose the leader itself. What are we going to pick here? So that's the regular infantry. Some moral, fire damage received. I don't like that. Charge, 15 veterans are gained. I'm just going to skip this. I don't like any of them. Reload speed, stamina regain. Yeah, I'm gonna do with that one. Reload speed is always nice. That one is completely full. Move speed offers death chance. That one is good. Okay. So that's my unit. Rensköld, Wrangler, Baner, och Horn. Those are my officers. And as the Umeå Brigaden, Stockholm Brigaden, Umeå Cavalry Brigade, Cavalry Brigaden, Malmö Brigaden. These are all fictional units. I will tell you that. These are real leaders. Some of them are from the 17th century, some are from the 18th. Cryogenic pods, I guess. And right now I have Kleinkrieg. I have Junker Aristocracy. I think that's the one you start with. Command Initiative. regiment accuracy, reload. And then frontline focus, which means I don't want to get flanked. But I am pretty good at reducing damage against me. And then winter season, well, the winter season is over. I'm going to Act 2. I do have this and that in reserve, plus this guy. I was thinking about maybe doing something like, if this ever... Maybe just make this a guy. Yeah, I think I want to... I just want to make this maybe the artillery one? Or maybe it is the artillery one. Let's see. No, that's infantry accuracy. So, final brigade that I'm going to get right there. I can now start... Yeah, that's not necessarily bad. And then we are going to start with... We're going to be... What do we call this? Oh. On move. Artillery. So that's a regiment. And we... Oh. That's what we want to do. There we go. There we go. And flag pattern. Let's do crossed cannons. Because these are artillery units. And that's all they're going to be. Let's give them some better... I don't think I have better artillery, though. I'm going to have to wait with that. What do you mean? Oh, I had it already. What else can we give it? With more ammo efficiency? I can't afford an upgrade, can I? I can. So what else can we give it? A little bit of speed. There we go. So we are now starting our artillery regiment. And what are we going to do for uniform here? That's different. Yeah, why not? That can be an artillery uniform. And as far as a hat, yeah, let's be different. That's a little bit different for an artillery regiment. And there we go. We're starting our artillery regiment. I don't have any more money. I ran out of that. That's fine. That's fine. I could also move all of these right now into here. And then as soon as I get artillery units, I can just dole it out here. Sounds good to me. Sounds like a plan. So I have a fully filled out artillery unit. And should I just move things around? That's infantry accuracy, reload speed, which is nice. Move speed. Artillery reload speed. Reload speed. You know what? We're switching. Wrangler. You are going to be the artillery dude. And that guy is going to be an infantry dude. And you are going to get the funnery hat. That one. And then you are going to get the different uniform. Yeah, that one. And you can go back to do an infantry uniform. Like that. There we go. Now they're all a little bit different. They're all fitting their own regiment scheme. I think this works. Actually, let's go with the hat here. Like that. And that one can get the slimmer hat like that. What do you think? Is that gonna work? I am now set up for Act 2. Where let's just start with Act 2. So I don't have to redo that fight. I was dumb enough last time to, I saved at that point before I had a chance to go to this. And yeah, it didn't turn so well. So choose your doctrine. What doctrine are we going to go with? Combat effectiveness, armor experience, melee damage, regiment accuracy. Scoot and shoot, man. That seems like a very useful one. So, army gains 50 veterans in drilling stance. Munition consumption increases. Item sale profit at settlement. Ooh, that's nice. Attrition damage. I'm gonna go with attrition, and I'm getting the Prince von Preußen Musketeers, Itzem Blitz Musketeers, and the Weide Jaggers. I'm not a Jagger guy. I honestly am not. So we are going to Britain. The Swedish army is going to Britain. Can I believe that stuff? Yeah. We're not going to play this second act, but I figured you could check it out. So here we are. The second act. And this is the map we're dealing with. We have to reinforce outposts, and we have to secure battlefields. Now, I will scrounge everywhere for everything. That's the best way to get your units. The only thing I'm interested in now is to find 3 good artillery units. Now, what I will do with... Is it this guy? Where are you? No. I want to get rid of the Jagger, because I'm not a Jagger guy. And then what I want to do is... Yeah, this one. I'm actually going to make that a Cossack. Yeah. We are going to go for Cossack. We are putting you in... Oh, well, first, just let dump his stuff off. I know, that's rude. I'm stealing all these things. But you are going into reserve, and you are going here. That's right. Because I rather have 2 Cossacks. And I rather short man one of these. Because I can always get another infantry unit. But Cossacks, they're so fast. They are among the fastest units you will have. And well worth the price of admission. I'm really going to have to get something better here, though. Oh. What am I doing? Being a little bit on the dumb side here. And there. And that. And that. And we're going to give them that and that. Yeah. That's it. That's all I want out of this guy. Let's fix this hat here to be blue. Nope. Blue and red. And we're good. We are now set for the next video. Act 2. You have a fantastic day. I hope everything works out your way. And as I always say, adieu.